I'm your host, Sean MacKenzie. Thank you for joining me once again on my channel on data analytics and data engineering. In this episode, we're going to return to our Microsoft Access playlist, and we're going to talk about option groups and how handy option groups are, but also how they're a little bit tricky to use. And so that's one of the reasons why I did this video, is that they're pretty tricky. So what are option groups? Well, option groups are radio buttons. When you have mutually exclusive choices inside of a box with little radio buttons that you can choose, and when you choose one, the other ones become deselected, and so it gives you a nice sort of easy way to get selections from the user. And so what we're going to do this time is we're going to create an option group, and we're going to show how to get the values of the selected items or selected item out of the option group so that we can use it inside of our queries or inside of our code. So without further ado, let's get to our option groups. Okay, to get started, we're going to use an access file that we used already a couple of times, and we're going to open a form in design view, and then we're going to go to the toolbox, and we'll click on the XYZ there. That indicates the option group, and then when the wizard comes up, if it does, you can hit cancel, and we're going to learn how to use the option group in a much more realistic way that will teach you how it works. So I'll go ahead, and you can see in our property sheet there, you can right click on the option group and go properties to get this window on the right side. And you can see that I'm changing the name to something that makes sense. So we'll call it OGRP main for option group main. And we can go back over and rename our label for that as well. And that'll give us our option group itself. And this is important to see that we have the group, which is kind of like a frame. And then we can go ahead and start adding our options to it. It is important to note that you need to grab the option separately. So you'll click on the option, and then you'll see that the option group will go black. And you need to drop the radio button, in this case, onto the option group when it turns black. And that'll allow you to have your first option. And so what we'll do here is we'll give our radio button a name. We'll call it OPT, and we'll use colors for this, I think. So what I'll do is I'll call it OPT green, and that'll allow us to have our first option, which says that our value is, or our selection is green, but the option value is going to be 1. You can see that option groups, they typically work with a number in the background, and so our first one says green. When we click it, it'll make the option group have a value of 1. For each of our following options, we can do the same thing. We can click on the radio button and drop it onto our option group in our form, and that's going to give us another option. So we'll drag that one into place underneath green, and we'll call this one OPT red, and and you can see that it has a value of 2 for the option value. So that's what's actually going to display in the background whenever this option is selected. And then we can do the same thing for let's say yellow. We'll grab an option group and we'll drop it on there, and we'll call this one yellow, and so we'll change the label to yellow as we're doing right here, and then we'll change the name to yellow after we drag it into place there. You always want to change your names so that you can troubleshoot later, and it'll be very obvious if there's some kind of error or something. It'll actually tell you, instead of option 6 has got a problem, it'll say option yellow has a problem, and that means a lot more to you. So you can see that one has value of 1, 2, and 3, and we've got it set for green, red, and yellow. And then we could do, say, one more. So we'll grab a radio button and drop that on there as well for blue. And so we'll rename the label, and we'll call that blue. And then we'll click on the option itself, and we'll change the name on that one as well. We'll call it OPT blue, and you can see that has a value of 4. So whenever the option group changes to blue, it'll return a 4. And I'll show you, after we get this ready, I'll show you how to see that in various different ways. And once I've resized our option group to look kind of normal with our selections inside, I'll save our form, and then we can move on to the next step. And then after I save that, I'll drop a text box onto the form just so that we can see it. So we'll go up to our toolbox, we'll click on text box, and then we'll just drop that onto our form. And this is just to see our output value for when we click on our option group. And then from there, once I drop the text box on there, change the name of the label, I can add forms, exclamation, option form, exclamation, and then OGRP main, which is the name of our option group. And you put an equal sign at the front so that it looks for that as the form is running. So you can go to the form view, and then you can click on each of the options. You can see that it changes the value in the text box. Now this is very handy. This is looking up the value just on your text box, but you can also look up the value in several ways. So that's just a text box lookup. You could use it for various things on your form and things like that. So from here, what we could do is we could say, well, how could I use that value maybe in a query? And you could do that as follows. So from here, we've got our option group set up nicely. We've got our text box here that is collecting the value. If I extend that, you can see the expression that I'm using to look up the value in the option group. And we can use that almost exactly the same expression in a query that'll look up our option group value. And so what we'll do from there is we'll go into our create, and we'll go query design, and you can just close this window here and then drag your table. In this case, I created a table called option test, and it has the color stored as the numeric value as one of the fields. And so we'll go select star, and then for a criteria, we'll select the color field, and then we'll paste in the expression that we had on our form, but we're going to remove the equal sign from the criteria. And then from there, we can see that it's going to look up the value, whatever's on the option form, and it's going to get that in our query. So if I select green, and I go to our query and I run it, or look at it in datasheet view, you can see that the color is set to number 1, which is green. If I go back and change it to red, and then go to my query that we created, and I look at datasheet view, you can see it's set to 2. And so the query will change with that parameter in there, with the criteria. It'll look at our option group each time so that you can retrieve the value for whatever it is that you want to look up. So we can look at green items or blue items. If I choose the last one, which I created a couple of blue items in that table as well. So jeans and socks were blue, and so they've got option color number 4, which is blue, and that's how you can use the option group in your query as a parameter. And that's very handy for all kinds of different uses, to be able to use your expression in multiple different places, whether it's in a text box on a form or in a query. You can look up that option group anywhere. And you can also look it up using your, if you're writing some code, So in this case we can use the immediate window, and I can just put the expression right into the immediate window and remove the equal sign, and instead we'll put the question mark and hit enter, and that's going to return the value that's currently selected on that form, which is useful for your code. So you could actually put that into a subroutine or a function to look up the value that's been selected by the user on that form when you go to run something. So that's a very useful technique for using code. And so what would that look like if I wanted to write some code? Well, you can use the after update event. If you click on the properties and go to after update of your option group, not the options but the option group, click on the ellipsis and then select code editor, and then that'll give you the after update event of the option group itself, which is very, very handy. So it means I can do something or run some code or whatever after when the user changes the value in my option group, and that's very handy for you because you can have all kinds of things that you can do. You can open a report or you can update some data or whatever. So in this case, what I'll do is I'll select case, and then I'll say me, and then the OGRP main, which is the option group, and I'll say if it's number 1, then let's do a message box that says the color is green. If I do case 2, which is yellow, then I'll say the color is yellow, and then I'll do the same for yellow and red and blue. And so you can see that after the user clicks the option group, it's going to evaluate what the value in the option group is, and then it's going to do some different commands depending on what was selected in the option group itself. So this gives you a nice idea of how you can use the after update event with your option group in order to do useful things. You could also load that value of me exclamation OGRP main. You could load that into a variable, and then you could use it in a bigger procedure and things like that. So once we get all our case statements in there, we'll put a case else just in case something funky happens. We'll say not selected. We'll put our end select on there, and then now what we have is we have a bunch of different cases of what happens after we use our option group. So I'll save those items, and then we can go try it out and see how it works. So as you can see, we can go to our form and we'll open it in form view. When I click on red now, you can see it says the color is red in a pop-up message. If I say yellow, it says the color is yellow. If I say blue, it says the color is blue, or green, the color is green. And so what that does is it allows us to attach some code to our option group that makes it very handy, and this is a really nice way of implementing some solutions using option groups in Microsoft Access. I hope you enjoyed today's discussion on option groups in Microsoft Access, and I hope that you can use this technique in your project. If you like what you saw today, please give the video a thumbs up and make sure to subscribe to the channel. And also click the bell when you see the bell so that you'll be notified of any new content that I put up on the channel. If you have any questions or comments, make sure to leave those in the comment section below, and I'll make sure to try and answer any questions that you might have about the content that we put up today. Have a great day, have a safe day, and I'll catch you next time.